All right, good morning and welcome to the Hear Me, See Me, the 2021 Equity in Higher Education, Missouri Higher Education Summit. My name is Jerron Bell and I'm a Senior Research Analyst at the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development. I have the pleasure of being the moderator for this presentation by my colleagues at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Before we get started, there's some virtual conference etiquette I want to remind everyone of. All participants should be muted to eliminate any background noise, so please stay muted. We want to see your face, so if you do have capabilities to have your camera on, please turn that on so we can better engage with you. All presentations will be live, so bear with us for any technical issues. If you have any questions or comments, please put those in the chat. That will be monitored by myself throughout the presentation, and we'll ask those questions at the end. If you did enter the session, but you decide this isn't for you, just close out and head over to another session. That's not a problem, like you would do any other in-person conference. All the sessions will be recorded, so you'll be able to access these after the conference is over. Don't forget to engage with us on social media if you like, using the hashtag Equity2021 and also at DHEWD, as well as our conference website. So with that, I will turn it over to the presenters. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for presenting.
Good morning. Thanks, Jerron. I'm Kristi, and you can see our names and positions on this slide. I'm happy to be here with my wonderful colleagues from UMKC to share some of the work that we've been doing. Unfortunately, Doug Swink is not able to join us today, but we will carry on. And the next slide has a little bit of summary information about UMKC. So you know a little bit about who we are, located in the beautiful Kansas City. I am glad that we chose to start our presentation by talking about our culture of care, which you can read about on this next slide. Recently, we had a national expert in equity work, Dr. Frank Harris, deliver a series of workshops for our campus community. And he emphasized the importance of the culture of an institution. And he noted that all the best strategic initiatives in the world will not be as effective if you don't have a widespread equity-minded culture. So that's sobering news. I think we could probably be in agreement. There'd be wide agreement that this is easier, that it's much easier to take action and create programs and put things in place than it is to change culture. I would say that we're fortunate that we've been working to implement what we call a culture of care for quite some time, and we continue to explore new ways to do that. How do we build out concrete things we need to do for these ideals that you see on the slide to fully describe how we treat students and each other? The first two statements really get at the issues of bias and prejudice, while the last statement is aspirational. It what motivates us to keep working at this. And I will turn it over to Makini.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about a few initiatives that we have going on at UMKC that are related to culture of care that help support that. So in 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, UMKC took the opportunity to reinvigorate and reimagine our equity work. And one of the ways that we did this was through an initiative called Ruths Advocate for Community Change, or RAC. And this was a comprehensive effort with intensive and collaborative work across campus to engage in a variety of DEI efforts. And here are a few of the initiatives that we did. It's not all of them. We did a mandatory bias and microaggression training for all UMKC employees. As of today, 93% of staff and 83% of faculty have taken the training. We also revamped our faculty hiring process, which I will share more on in just a minute. We held listening sessions with our Latinx and Black student leaders and developed a working plan of student needs to help keep us focused, administrators and faculty focused on accomplishing the goals for our students. We developed a conversation series called Critical Conversations, which are panels of local experts that discuss topics relevant to communities of color, such as policing, healthcare, and education, among other things. We created a Black alumni group, as well as an affinity group for Black faculty and staff here at UMKC. And then we also threw support behind various working groups attending to important issues such as health equity and digital equity in the Kansas City community. And again, this is just a snapshot of the work that we have been doing through Ruths Advocate for Community Change. Slide, please. Okay, so as I said, one of the initiatives is the restructure of how we do faculty hires. And like many places, there are racial and ethnic disparities in our faculty at UMKC where BIPOC faculty or Black, Indigenous, people of color who are faculty are underrepresented. So we needed a completely different process to support inclusive hiring to ensure our faculty represented the students that we are serving. From that work, we developed the Faculty Search Support Team. And the team is composed of the Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs, myself, the Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Inclusion, Human Resources reps who work on faculty hires, and then 2 Provost Faculty Fellows. And we consulted with Luke Wood at San Diego State University, who does a lot of this, the work in this area. And then we also used evidence-based practices to support all of the strategies that we promote in this program. But essentially, there are certain points in the hiring process that we focus on where we can have, where the research says that we have the most impact, which you can see laid out here. The group interfaces with each and every search committee throughout the hiring process, and we provide guidance on developing inclusive job ads and job descriptions. We provide specific guidance on developing an inclusive recruitment plan for the search committee, specific guidance on how to avoid implicit biases of candidates in the application review, during the interview process, and then the selection process, and then guidance on how to hold search committee members, how search committee members can hold each other accountable in making sure that they are implementing the guidance that we provide education on. And then we are also using this as an opportunity to assess the effectiveness, a research opportunity to assess the effectiveness of this new process that we're doing. Slide, please. And so another initiative that we have is something called the Faculty Institute for Teaching Inclusive Curricula, or FITIC, lots of acronyms. And this program has existed in this form for about 3 years, but a similar program existed since the early aughts. And FITIC helps UMKC faculty develop skills and strategies to create an inclusive curriculum and classroom. It is a year-long program consisting of 4 all-day workshops, and faculty apply to get into the program and receive a stipend for participation. They submit a course that they want to transform, and then over 3 workshops in the fall, they learn about transformative education. They do a lot of cultural self-reflection and discussion. They read relevant texts. They take assessments, and then discuss how all of those things impact their course and their class and classroom and how they teach. And then, of course, they discuss ways they're going to make their course inclusive with what they have learned, everything that they've learned. And then in the spring, they teach their Transform course and come back for one last workshop in May to discuss how it went and review and get peer feedback. Currently, the program supports 6 to 12 faculty a year, but we are working on trying to expand the course so that more of our faculty receive this amazing content. Slide.
Thank you, Dr. King. Good morning, everybody. I am Todd Wells, and I work in student affairs at UMKC. And I'm going to just briefly introduce you to a really important committee or team at UMKC called the Student Success Action Team. And action is important to us because it is not just a committee where we talk about the issues. Action was included purposefully because we want to take action on equity in higher education. And we know students at UMKC and all across the nation, and importantly, underrepresented students are not experiencing success and completion at the same rates of other students. And so we have formed some really important groups. Sense of Belonging and Campus Live recruiting, affordability, and housing, faculty engagement and mentoring, staff and advising related. But really important for us is also the student voice was added. What else is really important and critical for me to mention about our Student Success Action Team is that the action team includes voices of all faculty, staff, and students on our campus. It's just not the top administrators or mid-level managers. It's all of us. And there's no stopping when we're saying, if you want to add somebody, add that person so we can address some of the most pressing needs. But I do want to mention student voices. We came together with a bunch of topical discussions to allow our students to talk to us about what they're facing, how they are not, what are they experiencing that doesn't allow them to complete at rates that are similar to other students, and listen. Simply listen and then take action. And so we have lots of great opportunities to discuss our Student Success Action Team. But I'm going to move into a next important piece, which is the creation of our Student Basic Needs Center and the Kangaroo Pantry. One of the things that we learned after participation in the Hope Center for Community and Justice Real College Survey is that we learned of those students surveyed, nearly 51% of those students surveyed from our campus experienced some form of a basic needs insecurity. And so we knew that simply hosting a food pantry with some canned foods on our campus was not enough. And our action team, along with our chancellor and provost, funded a new position, the Student Basic Needs Coordinator, who's a licensed master social worker, very familiar with the Kansas City community, who is a trained advocate, who is very community connected, that allowed us to provide robust services for our students. And so one of the things we immediately did at our Kangaroo Pantry is move away from just canned goods. We still do that, but we are providing direct assistance with Meal Swipe program, where our students on campus donate unused meal swipes to students in need, no questions asked. We extended our hours, and so we're open on Sundays for our students. And then we've created relationships with all types of organizations. One important is Whole Foods, right across the street from our campus. We get donated fresh produce, milk, other products that students can come in and use. We've also increased the number of satellite pantries on our campus. So we now have satellite pantries in our student union, on our health sciences campus, at our Student Success Center, where students can come. It just looks like a shelf full of canned goods and they can get what they want, especially if our food pantry is closed. But also importantly for us is to address housing assistance. And that's been something that all of us on this call are always wondering when students come to us and say that they're experiencing insecurity in housing. And so again, our survey reported that 41% of our students have experienced, who were surveyed, experienced some level of housing insecurity. And so we have been able to work with our housing and residential services, where we do offer temporary, now no cost on-campus housing for 2 weeks, and allows that student to work with our basic needs coordinator to identify permanent housing in our community. We also connect our students to emergency shelters, and then programs that provide rent assistance when students can't just make ends meet. And so we're really proud of our Basic Needs Center that continues to grow and change by listening to our students and telling us what they need to eliminate a barrier of their success so they can concentrate on their academics and life.
And good morning, I'm Keichanda Dees-Burnett. I serve in the Division of Student Affairs as well. And Todd mentioned earlier in his presentation about our Student Success Action Team and the various subcommittees and themes the team is focused on this year. Again, some of those themes did emerge from conversations we had with students. And so two key initiatives and programs that emerged from those conversations we want to highlight today. This academic year, we really chose to focus on addressing equity, inclusion, and sense of belonging for our students of color, and in particular, our men of color. We partner with Dr. Frank Harris III to host a professional learning series for UMKC faculty and staff. If you don't know who Dr. Harris III is, he's a professor and senior strategist for San Diego State University and an expert on student equity, institutional effectiveness, and student success. So these series of conversations have featured very important, very honest, and very engaging conversation about how our campus community can work together to ensure equity and inclusion practices within the campus environment and within the classroom. In the spring semester, if we want to go to, well, in the spring semester, we plan to host a summit that will focus specifically on our men of color on campus. This will be a half-day summit that will feature speakers that will address topics relevant to the experience of men of color, perceived barriers, and identify action for increasing support and retention for this population of students. And on the next slide, we're just showing you a quick snapshot of all the sessions that are offered through this professional series. We're almost through them all. Actually, we've hosted 4 of them. Our last session was specifically hosted for our university executive leadership, our vice provost, and our academic deans, because we really want to enforce this idea that it takes all of us on our campus to create this community of equity and inclusion. Our last session will be hosted in November, and we look forward to closing that series out and then taking what we've learned and putting that into action.
All right, so another new initiative on campus is our new centralized proactive model for undergraduate advising. This is really motivated by a lot of inconsistent practices across campus, dual advising systems, variations in workloads and salaries. And so this has been under development for a year and was implemented this fall. And here you see some of the defining features, and I'll just emphasize a few. I think our new efforts to personalize in advising are important. We now have a getting to know you appointment where advisors have the opportunity to work through a form and gather information and get to know their students and help identify what some of the potential barriers might be so that they're aware of the campus resources that align with those challenges. Another that I think is really important that I'm excited about is doing a better job of integrating career services and career discovery and guidance into academic advising. Also not on the slide, but in response to student need, we've extended hours into weekends and evenings to best serve students and have developed more of a career ladder and professional development for our advisors so that they feel like they are continuing to grow and develop in their careers rather than feeling stuck in them. So that was another important improvement we made. Just like the Basic Needs Center and the Kangaroo Pantry, our new Financial Wellness Center on the next slide is an attempt to address student needs more holistically. I think in the past we just focused on academics, and now a lot of places are realizing the need to think more broadly. Our new coordinator did a really amazing campus needs assessment for us and quickly put together a strategic plan and programming, which includes one-on-one coaching, events and workshops, and a great resource library. And I'll just give you an example. The last parent and family newsletter had a link to a really great resource on speaking with your student about money. And so it has all these very specific tips and resources to help parents and students navigate college finances and work together. So the Post-Secondary Equity Network, and that word equity is missing from our title in the slide there, so apologies for that. But this was convened by St. Louis graduates, and it brings together colleagues from Missouri colleges and universities to advance racial and socioeconomic equity. This has been a really meaningful part of our work. I feel it's allowed us to have broader conversations. For me, I think most important has been the really great professional development that they've offered. So that's one of the benefits. Another for me And these are teams of people from universities that are participating. But another really important part for me has been the rich conversations that include students. So not only is it administrators and faculty, but it's students, and then we meet as a broad group, but then also as a campus group. So just continuing to work toward the development of equity-minded frameworks and setting very concrete goals about what it looks like for us to close gaps in student outcomes. Okay, I think we're doing well on time here, so we'll have time to show our video. But I would like to close by sharing a recently developed video for marketing and recruitment. And one of the concerns that we've discussed in our STAT team is that we make sure we're sending a very strong message of welcoming to our students and really focused in on sense of belonging and what that looks like at UMKC.
It's a college, it's a totally different scenery. And I feel like having like-minded people around you helps your mind grow.
And UMKC was just like the better fit for me. Ideally with, the programs they offered and as well as just being a diverse school.
And I feel like it has a lot of resources that if you actually take advantage of them, you can just reach your goals.
Honestly, I think I felt like right away at home, like I'm kind of a social person, so like a lot of events that happen like the first opening weekend, and just moving on from there, I feel like I was able to interact with a lot of different people, getting able to make different connections, relationships. So I always feel like I had somebody that I could go to.
I mean, because it's not so small that like I know everyone, and that's kind of what I wanted. And I wanted to go to a campus where I was going to be with new people every day and have the opportunity to meet new people and make new friends every day.
I have a lot of friends thanks to like the organizations. I've also participated a lot, and that made me feel like I belong to UMKC. So I feel like being a student and feeling like you belong to the university is actually like a great feeling because it makes you want to like keep going and keep doing your best instead of just like dropping out of school.
Of course, we have a very diverse group of organizations as well here at the Multicultural Student Affairs Office. So there is definitely a safe space no matter what. You're not entirely completely strangers here when you get to campus. You'll build connections easy and it'll just be a great time.
I mean, from my personal experience, it's been very accepting.
Don't be afraid to ask questions and just like talk to people. They're not gonna bite.
After I weighed all the pros and cons, it ended up UMKC was the perfect place for me to be.
Right, well, that's our overview, and we welcome any questions or discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for presenting us this awesome presentation. Really appreciate it. Actually, we do have a question in the chat. I will read it out here. Continue to be impressed with UMKC's holistic approach to advancing equity. As you roll out these various initiatives, where have you encountered resistance and how did you address it?
I can take a stab at that. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think generally we're like hitting on all of the right points and, bringing in the right people. And there are lots of folks on campus already who are advocates for equity. And in my opinion, the resistance, most of the resistance isn't active resistance. There's like two parts in my mind. There's like, we are in the great state of Missouri. So I won't go into why that feels like resistance. So that's one barrier. So it's figuring out how to work within the parameters that Missouri presents as a state. The other part is that I think that a lot of folks, and we're working on this, just don't all want equity. They agree with it. They just don't know how to implement it and do it on like a day-to-day basis. Because there are lots of like specific things that people need to know how to do in order to affect that change. And so I think our roles are consist of a lot of just like teaching the skills and making sure that everyone's on the same page around these are the specific things that you need to do, whether you're faculty, staff, and students, and community folks, on specific things that you need to do on a day-to-day basis in your classroom with your colleagues, on your work teams, in order to affect this change that are part of all of our values. So that's my take on that. I don't know if my colleagues have other thoughts.
I think that was perfect. I wouldn't say I've met resistance or we've met resistance with it. I think people want to know how, and that's what these sessions have been able to provide, a space for them to talk about how can we do it. Because when you're talking about affecting and impacting the entire culture, that's deep, and that takes time and that takes work. So I think it may be some challenges to get there, but not resistance. People get it and they're on board with it. It's just they want the tools.
Great. I don't see another question in the chat, but I'll throw out a question here really quick. When you are standing up the food pantries and so forth, as you learn that process, how did you, I guess, get to the point where you can kind of figured out what are the needs of your students? Did you do it by surveys? Did you do it by just kind of testing it out, filling it out? How did you build that program up to where it's sustainable now?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We had to do all of that. We had to ask directly what our students need and wanted. But also we did participate in the Real College Survey, which was an important piece. We also worked with some researchers on our campus to do a localized study that happened in 2016. And then in 2020, we participated in the Real College Survey that gave us even more information, and especially during the pandemic. What we learned, we never closed the food pantry, and we figured out how to do online orders and bag groceries for students and then set them outside of our food pantry. And so we never stopped the operation of our pantry. We also know that we want students to get involved in the volunteerism of doing food drives and preparing. It takes an army to prepare a food pantry and to ensure that we have fresh quality products. And I think that's the other thing that we're most proud of, allowing students to have fresh meat and milk and products that they can actually use and provide healthy meals besides just canned food was a huge win, and something that our students told us. It would be great if I could get milk and cheese and ground turkey. And we said, okay, let's figure out how we do that. What partnerships exist in Kansas City to allow us to get that, because we had to buy refrigerators, freezers, thermometers, things that I never even knew were important to food safety. But we learned that through cooperation of Harvesters International, an amazing food partner here in Kansas City that taught us all that good stuff. But we listened to our students and we surveyed our entire, and our food pantry changed from what was kind of a hidden place now to an open, trying to destigmatize the use of the pantry. If you need it, come and get it. We have a no questions asked pantry. We just ask and verify student status, but after that, you can come and use it, no questions asked. And so that was another important piece that students said the amount of paperwork we had them fill out was too much, often embarrassing, because they're like, I don't know what my status is or how much income my family makes. We have an open choice food pantry, which was critical.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. I got one more question. I think we got time for one more question. I see one in the chat here. As you implement training and programming based on your assessments, how are you thinking about sustaining this work through policy?
It's a big question for a few minutes. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm not seeing challenges at this point related to sustainability. I feel like we have these initiatives have enough support and buy-in, and but I think, as we continue to assess how effective they are, I think that will continue to help us evolve make for better services. A lot of these initiatives are new, and so we're very much in a early assessment learning phase of what's working and what's not. And so I know just with what all the newness of it all, that's going to be really important that we spend time thinking about that and not cling to any ideas about, well, this is what we put in place, but how do we keep evolving in ways that best serve our students?
And I think we feel so supported because all of these initiatives, they pass through the chancellor and the provost first, like even the SAC committee is reporting straight to the provost and the chancellor, and it's their initiative. So I think we feel so supported that we haven't thought about how to put it into policy or the need to put some of these things into policy. But we know we have the support to sustain them, but that's a very good point that was brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Great answer. Thank you. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. We've got about 9 minutes left. So I will thank our presenters. Thank you so much to McKenna King, Keichanda, Dees-Burnett. Hopefully I said that right. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I met you before. I met you before. I just want to make sure I got that right. Kristi Holsinger and Mr. Todd Wells. Thank you so much for joining us. The presentation was awesome. Got about 9 minutes left to stretch out, get some coffee, do what you need to do. Next presentation will be about 10:30. So thank you all so much for being with us. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.